Today's chat is brought to you by, well, all of your support. Through the patronage you provide the Focus Fire chat team through Podbean's crowdfunding, we are able to provide you with the weekly podcast as well as the website and other aspects of Focus Fire chat. If you have any interest in becoming a patron of the FFC, please be sure to visit our website and click on the support link. Even a single dollar helps, and for those of you who are already patrons, thank you again for your generosity.
Welcome to Focus Fire Chat. Explore together.
Welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on May 15th, 2020 over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat as we continue our discussion over the current state of the Vanguard. This particular episode will serve as what we have come to call the advanced session of the week's exploration. Congratulations to those who signed up for a deeper dive. Before we go any further, however, let's run through a quick introduction of who all we have with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86.
And this is the Queen of ASMR, Green-Eyed Music Lover.
Are you a Whisper Bard?
Whisper Bard is best bard.
And last but definitely not the least in the hot seat as guest co-host, we have our good friend, HeyImDeadAgain, or as we'll be referring to him, Cam. Cam, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
I need an adult.
ASMR bard. Whisper sweet nothings while slowly killing you.
While also playing the feather.
Oh my gosh. I need to check in on Josh and see if they have had a chance to make that game happen. But anyways, going back into the conversation about the Vanguard. Green, you want to talk about Zavala and the Guardian games, or would you like to talk about maintenance operation logs?
I mean, well, Guardian games.
I mean, I know that Zavala and Shax got crunk at the Blustery Brew. I believe is
Did
the
they?
is
I don't remember that one. I remember the Hawthorne stuff.
There's when you first talked to Zavala after the Guardian Games event, he was like, blah, 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 blah. Shax is really looking forward to going to celebrate, and I think it was Little She-Bear was like, oh no, they're gonna go tear it up at the Blustery Brew. I was like, oh, Jesus. That's so true. I forgot about the Titan bar that the city has.
If they're going to the Titan bar and some of those voice lines that you found in the API are true, they're going to have a much more enjoyable evening than originally intended.
I really hope that's what happened.
Shout out to the Lore Network for collecting and providing you this tiny bit of lore that will probably break your brains.
Probably.
Let's just say Shax has an interest.
Shax is an equal opportunist. Let's just say that.
That's definitely putting it nicely.
Anyway, so the Guardian games. I know, I just wrote Blue. Didn't think I'd bring it up, did ya? It's your maintenance log. So we have the maintenance log that happened in Season of the Worthy. It's maintenance operations log 30037. It takes place between Guardian type class Titan and Guardian class type Warlock. It is a conversation between Osiris and Saint 14. It's kind of an amusing card. Blue, do you want to... I honestly think we should read it to talk about it a tiny bit, because there's aspects of it that I think are important to the Vanguard. Blue.
Yeah. Which user do you want me to be?
You... B2.
Okay.
I told you I would guide them to build the lighthouse, not carry the torch for you.
The Guardians require a balance Lord Shax can't provide. There is no one else.
And what about you?
I have unfinished business out in the dark. Take this.
What is this? A letter?
For your eyes only. When I depart, trust nothing. No one.
Except you, of course.
When have I ever led you astray?
This week, you mean?
Help where you can. The Vanguard has been serving too long. Their blind spots have grown.
Perhaps, but they're wiser too. Ikora and the commander have guided the city through dire straits.
Have you spoken to the House of Light, like I asked?
I would rather not speak with Fallen.
They need our help. They may need our help. Their cause is just.
What happened to trust no one?
What happened to your sense of right and wrong, hero?
That is the city's word, not mine. And the people still remember when I defended its builders from those very fallen.
Our kind live for a long time, Saint. Too long to bear grudges.
These accolades I wear are a reminder of what we lost to get here.
I think those who gave them to you would be disappointed to hear that.
I had nearly forgotten that you finally asked about them.
We live too long for regrets. You taught me that. Don't forget the House of Light.
If I can find the time, yes. Not all of us conjure echoes.
Reflections, Saint. I have no need for echoes anymore.
What do you mean? What's the difference?
One is a manifestation of light. The other, reserved for taken kings. Better suited for traversing the sundial because of what lies at its core.
One day you will have to tell me exactly what you and the Guardian did to bring me back.
We did what we had to. Trust me.
Now you sound like the rat.
No, the drifter sounds like me.
Where do you go next?
Wherever my road takes me. The lunar pyramid has galvanized the hive. Toland has been left unchecked for too long. I heard that he's still wandering the cursed city.
Then you really are just going to leave me with a burning sack? I should call it Trials of Saint 14.
You could, but you know how fickle guardians can be about names.
I will prepare them in your stead for what's coming. One last time.
It's bad luck to say last. Try not to put them on too high a pedestal, Saint. There's no one else to guide them.
Kind of a sad state of affairs there. Just gonna say that. And I would also like to say I am not at the bottom of the leaderboard.
I am.
With this card being read at the same time.
I am 100% comfortable with being where I always am.
Firmly at the bottom.
Firmly at the... Hey, someone's got to be the boat anchor.
You know, it takes skill.
It does.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. I got to make sure that you feel better about yourself being right above me.
Someone's got to make everyone look good.
Excuse me.
So I do actually like how Saint is like showing a bit of a character flaw within this particular thing with regards to Mithrax.
Yeah.
Not enjoying the Fallen.
Well, it's just it's one of those things where it's like, I know Osiris makes the comment that they live too long to hold grudges, but it's almost like, yeah, you live long enough that habits become so ingrained in your person. You know, there's something to be said about the way that Guardians operate within the world, because there's so much. Well, and what I mean by that is, like, if you think about it, a Guardian is resurrected initially and already has a personality, already has, you know, for the most part, speech capabilities, understanding stuff. I mean, there's a lot that there's already naturally, habitually present. So to then say, oh, well, you know, habitually holding grudges against so-and-so it's almost like that's a natural state for a Guardian. I would make the slight argument for.
Well, with Saint in particular, Saint saw so many horrendous things when it comes to the Fallen.
Yeah.
The whole eating of children thing. I mean, the guy has seen a lot, and he's been through a lot as well. So the idea that him having a slight bit of bias and not wanting to do the whole thing that Osiris is asking him to do, which possibly is just Saint just not wanting to be in charge of something, which is more of what I think is actually going on, rather than Saint being like, I don't like him. I don't like him.
Yeah.
It's just more of, I want to have an excuse, but I also don't want to do this. But I like Saint. I don't think he would completely negate duty, because that is absolutely against his character, but he definitely would rather Osiris take care of Osiris' business instead of Osiris pushing another Guardian off to do Osiris' business.
That's
like
fair.
He's done so many times.
That's fair.
The amount of times I have had to kill that stupid Cyclops in that strike.
Right?
I still have yet to get my apology letter.
Not only the Cyclops, but just like everything Osiris has done, he has often pushed somebody else in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to do it with Ikora. If we go back to like the whole Vanguard arrangement and whatnot, it definitely was trying to get out of it and just make somebody else do it because he didn't want to, because he'd rather do his own things. He's in some ways skirting responsibility.
I mean, he is the hunteriest warlock I've ever met. It's really just, I want to do my own thing.
That's fair. I don't know. But this one, when I'm with them talking about the leadership, there's kind of this uneasiness that they talk about the leadership with. Like, they say that Zavala and Ikora are doing a good job, but that they're not going to be enough for what's coming.
Yeah. Well, like them calling out the fact that their blind spots have grown, that, you know, sort of basically in so many words saying, like, they're becoming a danger because they're becoming too rigid and set in their ways, sort of.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's the reason why they're saying that, though? Or just that they're spread too thin? Because at this point, I would say that the Vanguard are just spread so stinking thin, trying to do all the different things that they can't even do one thing at this point.
Yeah. I think that's probably more what it is, but I think you could make an argument about, like, with Ikora becoming so involved in the hidden that she's sort of beginning to neglect the Vanguard in itself, and then that leaves everything to Zavala, who's running around trying to prevent, 47 cataclysmic events happening.
Which, by the way, I am glad that Zavala's out there doing things. Like, that actually, I enjoy seeing the Vanguard out in the field.
Yeah.
Even if it's just in a very brief thing, seeing them out doing the mission, seeing Zavala in the bunkers with Anna. That is something I really like. But one of the things I want to bring up with that is something we actually talked about with the Rasputin episode that we recorded last week, is that Zavala has had such huge character changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I hesitate to call it growth, because the whole I don't necessarily see it as growth in some ways, him trusting Rasputin so readily, but the changes that Zavala has had recently has been drastic in a lot of ways. Saying that he is rigid in his ways, I would actually argue he's not. He's changed quite a bit, especially in the last season. Blue, what are you thinking?
I think that's an accurate statement. I think Zavala has, and I think Eva makes the comment about that too, because, like, I think she kind of makes it in a joking manner about, like, oh, I never understood why a Titan's shoulder pauldrons are so big. But it's because, like, there's that sense of he's carrying, that proverbial weight of the world on his back. And, with regards to the Vanguard, in the situations that we have seen them in currently, that is kind of accurate. I mean, that's one of the reasons that he, I know a lot of people give him grief for the whole thing with the Forsaken campaign, but that's why he did what he did, was because there was no need to needlessly risk, city forces for the vendetta of one Guardian.
Well, sure.
But then you see within the curse, dealing with the curse, he did. And he was willing to help with that because they were allies, and there was a military mitigation factor there. And so I'm interested to see, and I agree a bit with your hesitation to say character growth. I think maybe it's more of a clarification of the situation, which in my brain might help explain, what we perceive to be a very quick 180 could just be, something. And I don't know, like, we usually got with the whole situation with Warmind, we got the web lore that kind of explained his apprehension with Rasputin. We never got that with the IO bunker. So I'm hoping that maybe we get something down the road, maybe that kind of clarifies his internal processing of what all was happening there.
I think in some ways he's lost, somebody was mentioning it in chat, he's lost so many adults in his life in some respects, like so many good, responsible people, that it would not surprise me that he would be looking for quote-unquote new allies, so to speak.
Well, and given the current situation, yeah, I would 100% say that's probably an accurate statement for the situation that they're in. Because if you think about it, that's pretty on the nose. We're running thin on leadership and on, in some capacity, allies. And arguably one of the largest threats is bearing down on us.
Yeah.
So
I kind of...
from that standpoint, I can see an argument being made that, I don't know, I can see an argument being made for that being the case, for sure.
I can definitely see that. So do we think that... Now, this episode, when I structured this one out, I structured a lot of the history and stuff to go in the first one, and this one to be more of a theorizing type episode. Mm-hmm. Do we want to theorize at all what's going to happen with the Vanguard upcoming?
I wouldn't mind. I have a couple ideas.
Yeah, and go for
it. Especially since, because this is sort of the log that started me on the idea of, maybe they're starting to put out there that they're considering new Vanguard entirely. Especially because, I remember reading that line the first time saying the Vanguard's been serving too long. I'm like, that's the first time that anyone in-game has sort of mentioned that idea that, these characters are replaceable and they may have sort of served their time. So I
have served their purpose.
Yeah. I would be... I think that story thread would be very interesting to follow. I've been wrong so many times with where I thought the story was going to go. I'm no longer in the business of predicting, as much as I try to. But, I think that would be a really interesting story thread just because it's not something I've ever really experienced in games like this where you have a change in leadership of that magnitude. Losing someone like Cade is sort of a common trope in terms of storytelling in game where you lose the glue that holds the team together, but
but losing the whole team.
Yeah, losing the whole team, whether it's, they go out in a blaze of glory in, the final confrontation or a confrontation with the darkness, or they sort of just get quietly ousted or even politically ousted. I don't really know what it could be. I think, me personally, I have this kind of working theory that I think there are faction elements inside the consensus that are seeing the weakness in the Vanguard as is right now, being down a full member, and are probably looking to take advantage of that and sort of break the reliance that the city has on the Vanguard.
If we are completely honest, though, the Vanguard have not been functioning in the same capacity since before Cade's death. The Red War, they were not the same Vanguard that we had in D1.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of probably their main argument is, you guys couldn't see this coming. You could, this was something of your cause, your campaign against the Cabal on Mars decimated them so much that this is what they brought in to put it down. And I it's kind of I've always said Destiny 2 is the game of dealing with the consequences of what we did in Destiny 1. We're dealing with the Red War because of how badly we decimated Cabal forces in our system. And, we're dealing with the aftermath of the Taken War, and dealing with the stuff that of all that comes with it. So I think it could be a really interesting story. I don't necessarily know. I guess, no, I don't want to get rid of New Monarchy flag. That's my faction, and I will stand with them.
Yes.
But I think it could be something I know, because isn't there lore that says the commander of the Concordant Lysander is still out there and gathering strength again? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think that could be sort of an interesting thing, because his whole thing was, let's get rid of the speaker, and we don't have a speaker right now either. So what if he were to come back and sort of be like, let's just get rid of the Guardians altogether. They didn't protect you. They've fallen apart since then. They've never regained their strength. Let's just, wipe the slate clean and pick new ones.
Yeah, I don't know I don't even know if they actually would pick new ones, to be honest. I don't think they would. I think they would completely just get rid of the idea of them and be done with it. I think there might be groups, leaders within it, but I don't think they're going to be quite the same.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, who could you replace Cade with and have the Vanguard
Shiro.
improve in function?
Shiro.
But then my follow-up question is why hasn't he stepped up?
Because Bungie.
Because storytelling. Because
yeah.
I feel like, because Bungie's probably the best answer.
Yeah, probably. Blue?
So I think there's a lot of issues with really either situation. Like you can't get rid of the Vanguard because Guardians, for better or worse, are a force that's going to be existing in the world that Destiny operates in. And if you get rid of the Vanguard, sure, you get rid of maybe the opposition immediately, but what you also do is you create a situation that is far worse in the sense that now you have basically demigods running around unchecked, and your one place of control, which, argue all you want one way or the other, it was a point of control for those forces. For the large majority of what was going on in Destiny, the Vanguard served as a very, very powerful mitigating force for the abuse of power that could be done by the Guardian forces on both a political and a military standpoint. So I don't think if the factions are at all cognizant of political ramifications, they're going to want to get rid of them without replacing them with something similar to it. That being said, I don't necessarily disagree that I think I would agree that there are factions within the factions, which is a really annoying statement to say, but I think that there are groups operating within that are seeking to undermine maybe the level of authority that the Vanguard has within the city's infrastructure. Not necessarily within the Guardian's infrastructure, but, we have instances where Shaxx is curtailing corruption inside the Crucible by other factions, by other companies even. And those factions and those companies are trying to, get a one-up on another person. It's just, standard political jockeying for pecking order. I think that's going to happen no matter what. But I think to get rid of the leadership component of a force that has the potential to do as much damage as Guardians do if they're not checked. I mean, we would be going back to Warlords. And that's the situation that most people in the city would probably be cognizant of, given what it took to get out of that situation. And given the lack of romanticizing that period has been put through, because in the scope of things, it has been maybe a generation or two in the city's development since that period. So it hasn't been long enough for people to start turning that into the romanticized Roman, let's look at the Roman Golden Age as this romantic thing. It wasn't. It was a horrible period of time. And, the travesties that were caused back there were glossed over. But that's because in today's world, it's been so long that the shock of it hasn't,
you forget
dulled.
about it.
The other prime example realistically is go look up the history of Genghis Khan and understand that everything that was done by that individual makes everything that has happened in the modern world pale in comparison when it talks about travesties of war crimes. but a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people don't know that about that period because it's been so long. And that's the exact opposite of what we're having with The Last City. So I think, and I think Dino said, yeah, story-wise, telling the Vanguard's never going to go away, because that is also, from a storytelling point, that is the introduction tool that they use to teach new players how to play the game. So you're going to always need something of that. Now, whether or not it is air quote, the Vanguard, that is, I think, much more fluid. I think that we could have a situation where it transfers or, it transforms into something more informal. But I think that archetypical positioning will always be present. And I think that because of that, we are going to see something come into play for the hunters. Because, as much as joking aside, the same way that they have a position that mentors new players and all that, it does need, not just for symmetry, it does also need for storytelling perspective to explain how, because we know that new Guardians are still being created. So the question is who's training the hunters? And all joking aside, hunters did provide a rather crucial component of city infrastructure. I mean, a lot of times it's told that the hunters are the ones that are scouting the wilds, who are bringing back equipment, bringing back, all the stuff that the city then uses to transform and build and continue products or production of different things. The hunters are a large scouting force and also are the ones that get sent out to take care of threats outside of the walls. There's a very important component that the hunter forces did fill within not just the Vanguard, but also within the city itself. It would be the equivalent.
Hunters still do.
Well, right.
But it's like they're just.
But there's going to be a critical mass point at which that efficiency is going to start pettering off if they don't get someone to help orchestrate that. Is what I'm saying. Because Cade, like the hunter mentor, regardless of how much they were willing to be there, they were responsible for, in D1 we used to have the bounty board. They were responsible for that type of stuff, and so without that, there is no orchestrating, and that's not just hunters. To be fair, I mean everyone used the bounty board. That was where it was, handed out. It's like this person's causing problems. There's a fallen warlord. That was half the strikes were glorified evolutions from the bounty board. I think was it Winter's Run was the one with the fallen warship or the fallen Kel ship on Venus back in D1. That was, that was pretty much a assassination call that was there. I mean, the infamous Valis to Arc strike was an assassination. Like that, if you want to get down to brass tacks about that one, that was us taking the head off a snake that before it could get too big to be a big threat. That's exactly what that was. That was a military ordered assassination of an enemy leader. And so, and there's a large component that the Vanguard is doing very important stuff. Now, again, you have stuff like the New Monarchy, the Concordat, but I agree, but I also disagree with, I can see the current Vanguard changing, but I don't see it going away. Just simply because from a political, from a pragmatic standpoint, you would be creating such a worse situation by just removing them than you would be solving. The cure in that situation would be far worse than the disease, if you want to look at it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I can see that too. Like Dino's saying right now in chat, Dino's saying that he's been adamantly opposed to Uldren becoming the Hunter Vanguard because of the dare, because, there's a lot of components that can be argued there. But, that being said, if we actually get a story, a minor campaign to develop him into helping him become the Hunter Vanguard, and he steps into that role because of development that we help we as our characters, help grow him in the story, yeah, I think that would be really cool, because he says, give me this sad loner who's trying to find his place in the world that hates him by virtue of existence, and give him a noble warrior that feels he owes it to try to remedy the problem that they caused. Because when it comes down to it, whether or not you pulled the trigger on Uldren, a large part of it is you were present, and you were a very large part of the Uldren situation. Which then resulted in, the resurrection of Uldren as a guardian. So I can see that would be a fascinating story to see. Not to mention, you want to cause some drama in the Vanguard.
Oh,
put Uldren as the Hunter Vanguard beside Ikora and Zavala.
Do you have any idea how much money I would pay for a 5-minute fully animated clip of Ikora's first reaction of Uldren coming to the tower?
That's
just 5 minutes of Ikora.
Just I don't know, or
he's
Zavala.
In a room. The thing is,
anyone really
listening to Gina Torres lose her mind.
Really, honestly, I think that would also be, kind of going in that tongue-in-cheek thing. That would also be a really interesting way to win Zavala, or win people back over for Zavala, is to see Zavala actually showing he's actually got emotional problems with that situation. Like, everyone was giving him grief because of his stoic response, and as a character, I still argue that response really made sense because of the way that he held himself and the way that he was looking at it. But can you imagine how many people how much response that would generate if you see Uldren actually walking? Because it's a different thing with Uldren being halfway across the system and then him walking across the tower, and just seeing the stress that would create. That would be a very interesting story to watch. It would,
and it's almost one of those things where I want it to happen, because that's sort of a test on them of, here's this idea of when you become a guardian, you're sort of given this clean slate. You don't know
Dino
anything. You don't know anything that you have in your background, but you have this. But like Dino said, you have to live up with this. This is who you used to be, and you have to deal with the consequences of that. Right,
but Zavala's the one that's always said that. I think where Zavala's are, we are guardians. Who we were before does not matter. And so, putting him in the same room as Uldren, that would be a huge test of his own philosophy.
And I think, it could also bring up a really interesting dynamic of what qualifies you to be a member of the Vanguard. Because certainly there have been people who've walked away from the Vanguard, but has there been anyone who's been outright denied before they're even sort of given a chance?
Well, we do know, and on that vein, we do know that the consensus does have a say in it. The consensus has to agree that someone is going to be the Vanguard. Now, also in the same vein, we don't know that anyone has been denied the position of Vanguard. Again, I put up Caliban as a possible example, because if he was given the role from Tallulah, and then he comes back to the city, and they're like, no, we don't know. To be completely honest, we don't know. But that is an interesting thing for me to think about as well.
I like what Dino had said in chat, sort of giving us this campaign for him to prove worthy. I almost would like to see sort of the same, because he had mentioned earlier in chat, Shiro wouldn't really want to do it because the Vanguard's taken 2 of his best friends, and the 2 hunters he knew best both took this job and both died with this job. So why would I take it? What am I going to do differently?
Right, but that's the figuring out what the draw is to bring another hunter leader in there, right? That's the finding the new motivation. It's always been a dare at this point, but how do you try to dare somebody into this position now when it's been so heart-wrenching, I guess, would be the thing, because the person who would most likely take the position would be a guardian like my guardian who was there as a hunter. It would be very, very easy for that guardian to step up, but you can't write that. There's no way to make that a written thing.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that earlier today, too. It's like, well, what would we do if we made the Guardian the Hunter Vanguard? You know, like, let's just play this out. And I realized, I was like, it would never happen. Because here's the thing is, from a game standpoint, you have to write it where everyone can experience it. And we, by nature, have people who play different classes. And you're never gonna have a Warlock or a Titan take the role of a Hunter Vanguard. Like... Because the thing that's missing is very specifically a hunter. Like, every hunter was appointed by blackmail.
Blackmail prior.
This is true.
This is very true.
Was Tallulah, though?
Black Flag is...
Well, no,
also,
Tallulah
I wouldn't do it.
Tallulah was appointed by she was asked by the speaker. I think she initially turned him down. And then, like, later came in, like, I don't know if she came in after he had said, like, oh, I'm also getting Saint 14 and Osiris, or...
Yeah, I think the speaker dared her. He dared her.
Like,
I bet you can't do this.
You won't do this. Yeah, I bet you can't do this and be the best hunter for it. She said, hold my bow.
Yeah, that's...
Hold my bow.
Hold my bow is the best thing.
Titans may have a bar in the city, but hunters have multiple dives that are not labeled that only hunters go to. There would have to be.
Thank you, Dino. Yeah, he's got
Dino.
Are there others? Tallulah said.
So it's a dare.
Sobering a little. Yeah. When the speaker shrugged, she straightened her shoulders and tried to shrug it off as well. I don't know. I'm not sure I have time for logistical stuff. Well, I thought you might be up for the challenge, the speaker said. Because it would be a challenge, given your schedule. A daring endeavor, even. Tallulah was suddenly dead serious. So it's a dare, speaker? It might be.
Like, just Papa
Reverse
Speaker.
Psychology, a hunter's greatest weakness.
Papa Speaker just playing everyone like a fiddle. Well... Okay, so this brings up, it might be a little bit of an off-topic question, because there have been other speakers in the past, haven't there?
Yes, but there haven't been speakers of the last city.
Okay. It's just been him, the original. Correct. Or the one that we got to know.
The one that we know.
Well, that we know of. I think even that can be argued, because there are some lines that mention the title having changed, if I remember correctly, from D1. I'll have to dig back into that.
Because I thought when we visit the office, that was one of the ghost lines was there were others before.
Yeah,
but they weren't specific about when.
Yeah, we know that there were other speakers during the Golden Age and during the collapse and during the Dark Age and all that. But as far as the speaker of the last city, we know that, you know, Ephrodite was the large reason that the speaker came to the city. She was the one that convinced him to come and help out, basically. And then when he came and that whole situation happened, I would make the argument that I think that my understanding was that as soon as the consensus was created, that is the speaker that we have. That's the only speaker that has held that position. There were other speakers, because we have this speaker that we had. The speaker that was in the city was not the one that invented the mask that allows them to hear the traveler. That was a different speaker. So there are other speakers, but not. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Yeah, there's other speakers, but not the one that we encounter.
Correct. Yeah, there's not. Yeah, Dinos. Yeah, there none that held the consensus office. So none of the none other than the one that we have seen in game was quote speaker of the last city. There's only been one speaker of the city. There have been multiple speakers, though, in the past, because that was what pretty much Constellations was all about, was the different stories of all those different speakers.
Which is super disturbing, to read again right now, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Well, you also
Especially
start when you read it with trials and tribulations.
Mm-hmm. Not only that, just the whole collapse.
Oh, yeah.
The second.
Yeah.
Gosh darn.
Oh, yeah. No. Okay, now I'm following you. Yes. That's accurate. So you guys think topicked out?
I think we're good. I think so.
This is a good one. Do we think
they're going to create a new? Yeah, it's one that's more broad than our normal topics, which I like.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say? Do you think we're gonna?
Well, just the final thing. Do you think we're gonna get a new Hunter Vanguard? I think we kind of answered that. Probably not. Do we think the Vanguard's going to disappear? No. But do we think that the duties of the Vanguard are going to be different than they were originally intended? Yes.
Yeah, I would say that I would be very surprised to see the archetype that the Vanguard fills disappear. Now, whether or not the Vanguard itself disappears, I'm definitely more open to seeing that happen.
Yeah, I almost feel like, if anything, a more likely thing would be for it to splinter into separate groups instead of being just centralized around leaders. Like, like the Warlocks go off and just stay the intelligence unit that they are, and the Titans go off and sort of just stay that the military and protective unit, and Hunters continue being supportive in terms of scouting and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think the Vanguard's gonna continue in any way, shape, or form from what it was. I don't think it can anymore. It has to sort of change in order to figure out what new position it needs to fill.
I agree. And I think we should wrap up.
Definitely. So shout outs for the advanced session. Cam, what do you got for us?
I saw this very briefly on Twitter. Shout outs to Raz, who had a clean scan and has I think she is cancer free. Yep, she is cancer free. I know she had made an announcement prior to this, but I'm very glad and happy to hear that you are cancer free. So congratulations on that. And once again, shout out to you guys for allowing me to be a part of the show and talk about this.
Yes, absolutely. So shout outs for me is a shout out to every person out there. I had a really interesting interaction on Twitter yesterday. Wasn't a public one. It was one I had seen somebody mention that they were having a really, really rough time. And I reached out via DMs. And it's something that has happened for me during this whole crisis that's going on. Because mental health right now is just... Everybody's got bad days. Everybody's got good days. And there are not enough mental health professionals to be able to be everywhere at once. So if you see somebody online having a really rough time, saying that their depression is really hitting them, reach out to them, talk to them, even if it's just something very, very benign, being like, hey, how you doing? I saw this. If you need help, I know, like, Guardians of Mental Health is a great organization, and I directed this individual particular to that, but be kind of a vigilant person out there right now, because there are a lot of people that can slip through the cracks, especially when there's not a whole lot of physical interaction or personal interaction going on, and it's all digital. So be very, very vigilant, because those kind of people will make another people's day, as well as beyond that sometimes. So shout out for those heroes out there who are reaching out to people who are having a tough time. Blue?
I want to give a big shout out and congratulations to a really good friend of ours, Orchid, for getting affiliate. She got affiliate status over on Twitch, I believe, a couple days ago. So really big shout out for her on that. That's a huge thing. And I know it doesn't sound like much, but for those who are doing streaming and doing that type of stuff, it's a really big deal. And I really want to give her a big congratulations on that. Also, I want to say, we are still looking for transcribers or people willing to put notes on dialogue that I am building out for the Lore Network's website. So if you have any interest in doing that, we have a pretty good structure that I have to collect the stuff. So I'm really looking for people to help with organizing the different tags that we're going to be putting on them. And then also if you have any notes or thoughts on the various dialogue quotes, we're collecting those. And also, as I feel like it's silly, but I want to make sure I say this, that all credit will be given to whoever. So if you do have a dialogue or you can confirm something, or if you have notes, don't worry about us not giving you credit. That's going to be very explicitly stated on the pages, because with the new structure, I actually can more prominently call out the contributors who are helping us with that project, which is one of the reasons I pushed to kind of get that redesign done. So yeah, if you have any interest and you're stuck at home for a Black Swan event of any type of particular nature, I'm not going to name any names, but if you have free time and you want something to do, let me know, because I would love the help. But other than that, I don't really have anything else. So I just want to say thank you for your time. And until next time, remember, with wisdom we conquer. Stand strong, stand tall, stand strong, and keep exploring. I completely butchered that.
It's okay.
Goodbye.
We forgive you.
Bye.
With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us for the live streaming of the episodes, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/FocusedFireChat. Links to all our episode archives can be found at www.thelorenetwork.com. Please be sure to email us at focusfirechat@gmail.com with any comments and or questions for the team concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback and a rating over on iTunes as well. So until next time, focus your fire and may your light shine bright.